Praise the Lord, everyone. This is Elder Adrian Heyman. I just did another podcast on something on MAGA, but sort of shortening or truncating it. You can go and check it out. This one's going to be something a little bit different, although it is from a particular issue that's been in the news for quite a bit of time, and that essentially is the Epstein files. And regardless of where you fall, whether you want them released or whether you don't want them released or whether you care or not care, certain things I think you should consider before making a judgment. And I'm going to talk about a few things, and hopefully not things that are too scattered, but things that I think are pertinent. And what you should do is think upon those things and rationally respond to it. Not to me, of course, but to whatever you feel is right. And again, as a saint of God, our responses must be beyond reproach. We're invoking the Spirit of God for us to understand it. And we govern ourselves accordingly. So, let's start. Number one, I think it's practically agreed with most everyone that Jeffrey Epstein was a pretty sick person. At least if all of the witnesses that have come up against him are believed, that there could be upwards of over 100 or hundreds of victims of his sexual escapades. And the vast majority of them minors. That in itself should be disgusting. So let's get that out the way. Maybe somebody's, well, he wasn't tried. Maybe don't know if he was tried or not. Maybe someone can tell me whether he was tried and found guilty. We do know that his partner, his lady partner, was found guilty. Sentenced to 30 years in prison. At least 20, 30 years. And of course, there's another thing going on with that, whereas the assistant U.S. attorney has gone to see this person in jail for whatever reason. We'll find out, I'm sure, in the next few days or few weeks. But we do know that based upon her testimony and all the testimonies of the people that were victims, that this was not a very good person. Now, there is something called the Epstein files. And in it were names of people. But I want you to consider something before we start going off the rails. Just because someone is named does not mean they did anything. You still have to prove that there was wrongdoing done. Even though you may not want to be a part of that particular person, you regret the day that you said hi to that person, does not mean the person's guilty. And again, I evoke scripture. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. You got to find a witness. You got to find evidence that those that are included, whoever they happen to be, whether they're high, muckety-muck, Democratic movers and shakers, or they're Republican conveyors of law, or whether they don't call themselves either, they just like being around Jeffrey Epstein. We have to understand that there may be a reason why one's name may be included and there may be no news there. Of course, people like to sensationalize it. If your name is in it, then you must have done something and you must have been doing... No, not necessarily. Remember, this has to be proven in a court of law. We're still a nation of laws. We have to make sure that we abide by those laws instead of throwing people under the bus. I don't care who created the list. Some say it was Obama who created the list. Why would he create the list? For years, people thought it was high Democrats that were on the list in the first place. So why would he create a list, whereas the names of people high up in the Democratic hierarchy would be part of it? That doesn't make any sense. Now, talk about our president. It seems interesting that one of the words that were said in the recent Trump-Musk controversy, ventured out by the latter person, was that he was on that list. His name is in the files of Epstein. And to be honest, once someone starts saying there's nothing, they're nothing, after been talking all this time that there is a great revelation to be made about all the people, this is a way that we can go and clean the swamp. That all sounds great. But then the president says, nothing to see here. Of course, now that's going to change. But that does not mean, and again, I'm not saying that I'm in Trump's corner or not in Trump's corner. We got to give due diligence to the law. And that sense, even if he wrote letters to Epstein, maybe the infamous birthday letter that he conceivably wrote and drew to Epstein in a rather crude manner, it just means he was a crude person. He may still be a crude person, but it does not mean he committed any crimes. I think that's what you have to make sure that you may not want him to have known Jeffrey Epstein. And it's possible that people really didn't know the depths of his depravity until after he died. I'm sure people will say all that, and it doesn't matter which side. Again, could be Democrat, could be Republican, could be independent, could be rich, could be poor. It doesn't matter who it is. Essentially, the idea is that just knowing him is not a presumption of guilt. And we are presumed innocent before a court of law until we're proven guilty. In other words, whoever has it, whether it was Obama or Clinton or Trump or anyone else, is up to the people at law, the lawyers and the judges and the juries, to determine whether that association went just past, hi, how you doing, good to see you, and so on. And it went to, let me share in ravaging these women or girls. That's a big step. So when you're hearing about these papers and all the uproar going over it and the backlash happening and so on, I want you to really think clearly. I'm not trying to make a Pollyanna view of it. I understand that essentially it's not politically good to be able to be associated with this person. And I understand if someone's political fortunes may fall or rise based upon whether you're for or against. And I knew it all the time, or maybe didn't know it, but then essentially whatever happens to be. But I'm just talking about it from a purely legal sense. And the resulting backlash and then accusations of treason And I started reading a little bit about treason as well. Treason. The act of trying to overthrow the government or invading or assisting or abetting an enemy of this country to take over this one. That's a big thing to do. To accuse someone of treason. Now, the word treason has been thrown out so many times. And you would think that if it was anyone to whom treason was going to be attributed to, it would be those people who were tried and convicted for the January, I believe it's the 20th, or January I forget that. No, January the 6th, whatever that day was, in 2021. When people invaded the Capitol building and so on. But it doesn't seem to me that anyone was convicted of treason. There were other laws that they broke, but not treason. Now, whether you like it or not, they weren't convicted of treason. Otherwise, they would have been either sentenced to life without possibility of parole or sentenced to death. So if you're going to then invoke treason charges against somebody, no matter who you are, no matter what president you happen to be, you can't just say, he's guilty, 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 guilty. You charge him. We suspect. You give him his day in court so they can refute the charges and have reasonable representation given to him to answer for those charges. And only until after someone says guilty, whether it's jury or judge. I'm sure it's probably jury. That's the only way that someone can be found guilty. Not by hearsay. I have a letter. I have a note. No, that does not do it. I don't care. It's not how the law is done in the United States of America. And you should not be therefore a saint of God. Saint of God, essentially, we should have, what do you call it? We should have discernment. Saints, have discernment. Understand. It's not just about the law, but it involves every bit of our being. So, getting back to the Epstein files. My last point is that it has to be something that incriminates someone that has been doing or been invited to do the same things that Jeffrey Epstein was accused of doing and that his partner was convicted of doing. Letters by themselves don't say a thing. Birthday wishes by themselves don't say a thing. Being on a list of names contained in correspondence does not by themselves say a thing. It has to be proof. Now, someone may act in a guilty manner. That's possible. Maybe they did do something, and maybe there's another reason. I don't know. But as for me, I'm going not to accuse someone or charge someone. Whether my politics agree with them or not, doesn't matter. I'm going by the law. And saints of God, if we're to be credible, unless that law goes against the law of God, I would encourage you to do the same thing in all this mess. Now, you're going to see a lot of things come out. You're going to see a lot of people that probably shouldn't be in there. possibly in the files. I don't know. Maybe, or maybe there's nothing. I don't know. But remember, whatever happens, it's not enough that a person knows the guilty party. Maybe that's guilty of bad association. Okay, then vote them out. Next time you see them on the ballot, vote them out. Of course, if they've already done their service to the country, then essentially you can't really do anything else except for maybe spread rumors. And you don't want to spread a rumor, because we as saints should not be spreading rumors. That's one last thing. Do not spread rumors, saints, whether it's about Epstein or anything else. And I appeal to all those who hear me that whether you want to trap someone to fulfill your political agenda, if you are a child of God, stay away from that. Look at it objectively, and let's wait until everything comes out before we start pointing the finger at who should do what. Hopefully that makes your life a little simpler, or you didn't even care, so it doesn't matter to you. But I think we wasted too much time on this. Not that it's nothing there, but let the professionals do what they're supposed to do. Will it come out? Maybe, maybe not. It's possible that it will never come out. But it's sure better to wait than to jump the gun and you find out that you were completely wrong in your assumptions, which happens too many times to saints of God. And we should not be ones who purvey or be purveyors of wrong information through gossip, through spreading rumors. We're better than that, saints. So let's stay with the truth, whatever the truth may come out. There's no truth. There's no truth. Well, Jesus is truth. He'll let you know. One way or another, the truth always comes out. God bless you. May He keep you. Love you all. In Jesus' name. Take care.